was just 26 when he opened his first restaurant, Aubergine, in Chelsea. 1 year later, he was awarded his first star from Michelin, and shortly afterwards a second. Gordon made his first step up the ladder of success by applying for a job with another equally passionate chef, Marco Pierre White.
He said, come and spend 2 or 3 days in my kitchen, so I ended up spending 2 or 3 days with him. My knife skills at college and things like that, I was always very fast, so I suppose he was attracted by that. And I suppose the most important thing is from day one we got on very well. I worked very, very hard and spent 3 years there. And that's when I really started to understand, where I wanted to go, how I wanted to do it.
Okay, one nice comment on that.
He showed me an amazing amount of personal things. I mean, not only cooking, I suppose, in life really, on dealing with problems and handling difficult customers. And of course, he was only 25 at that particular time, 26 when he opened Harvest, and I was 19. So he was a very young man, extremely young, and. Just to see the guy's attention to detail was second to none. Phenomenal. You become attracted to that particular seriousness of it, and I just became obsessed. I remember Marco being away for a month because his wife had a problem in Yorkshire, and I was actually physically running that place for a month. And to see it running from nothing to something, it didn't have a star, didn't have any food critics. We started off very, very basic. We worked with things like pork fillet. We had veal kidneys. We couldn't afford sea bass on the menu. We were using mackerel. It opened up, very ridiculously cheap, 15 or 14 pounds or 12 pounds, I think, for 3 courses for dinner. And, it was rapidly becoming very, very famous. We were doing something very right. It was one particular style, and that's why I had to become so diverse and do something different on leaving there. Otherwise, I knew one day I'd never be able to have my own identity, to do my own thing, if I'd followed too much in his footsteps.
You're half Scottish folk, no? No, but I've just found a cracking site on one of the locks. We can open for 5 months of the year and close for 7. Can you imagine?
The idea of going to France and living in France was becoming more apparent, and it's something I felt I really needed to do to sort of confirm what he had taught me and to widen my knowledge. France, I was destined for France from a very early age, I suppose, because it was, that style and that format that I was attracted to.
Gordon went to Paris to hone his skills at some of the city's top restaurants. On returning to London, he was made an offer which was very hard to refuse.
I was actually working at the Claire as a head chef when I came back from Paris, and I was hopefully staying there until something exciting came up. I met Claudio, my partner, through Marco, and this particular restaurant was called 11 Park Walk, but it was trading as a restaurant under the name of Rossmore, and the place went into liquidation. Claudio phoned me and asked me if I'd be interested in opening my own place. I said, well, of course, I'm a little young, 25, but I'll have a crack at it because it's now or never.
That is the famous spoon. It's been here for the last 4 years. We've never lost it yet. Mark left it in Birmingham at the NEC one, so the Good Food Show. I went there back personally all the way to Birmingham to get hold of that spoon. It's just a spoon which, since we've been open, I've had on service every day. And it holds just the right amount of sauce in the depth. And I really enjoy just holding it because it sounds crazy, all that sort of care and affection over a spoon. But if I have to start serving with another spoon, I feel automatically out of place because this is a spoon that's been here from day one, and it's the longest spoon in the kitchen. And Mark tries his utmost best to lose it because he knows it's going to upset me.
We had a £10,000 budget to revamp the restaurant, and everyone thinks, who's the designer, because this place is, stunningly beautiful and it's very Provençal and it's very French. But we had a very, very low cost budget, and the walls, I mean, they were done with a rag.
Si tout le monde met du sien, comme le même problème qui s'est passé hier soir.
The idea was to fill the place, not make any money, but not to lose any, and break even. I had an appalling kitchen, no heat, cables, wires everywhere, no refrigeration. So I bought each particular solid stove and top every month. And once all my kitchen was set up, I spent £10,000 or £15,000 on a kitchen over a period of 6 months. I then could afford to start buying plates and some new fridges.
Nothing like having a camera crew in the kitchen with 40 for lunch, you know that? John. What do you think, Rust? Mark. What the staff do here normally, when we have a camera crew in the kitchen and they see people like Alan there in the back, vegetarians, they turn off the extraction fan and they cook them, and it's not very nice because then they get all hot and bothered. And then we had the problem with the fire alarms going, and as you can see, they've now been removed. So we removed the fire alarm so we can continue cooking the camera crew.
I sacrificed everything. I had a very patient girlfriend who, you know, we're now married. I put everything on the line, everything I had, lock, stock and barrel.
Then we had this French pastry chef once that always used to complain about his sorbet melting. His name was Claude. He's now writing as a sub-editor for the New York Gay Times, and he used to complain about his sorbets melting. He used to get very excited about the fromage frais sorbet melting, especially. I wonder why. Anyway.
It was make or break. It was either going to go on and be a huge success, or you were going to go into receivership like the previous restaurant. And I knew I had to come up with something different, and that's why having a light style, a different style, a comfortable style of eating without having to feel that one must take to their bed for 3 days after. And I think what I really stressed from day one is the extraction of pompousness, in the dining room, no intimidation. We want to make them feel relaxed and communicating with customers, which is very rarely done in top restaurants throughout the world, really.
C'est bien, on commence avant là, quand même. Excellent. Let's go, Madeline, please, the musical. Okay, Nathan, starting early, yes? Lawrence. Yeah. I want it clean, yeah? Yeah, complete it. Let's go. More of everyone cappuccino, I can one more time for the jacket, please. Put everyone here, 2 beats next to it, always one pass. Secretary, please. Wait. Crème. Le 14, monsieur. On enlève. Go. Le 14. Now you can see why the 6 covers is the largest table we'll ever do here, because that was 6 main courses, which is a nightmare. And fortunately, there are 4 of them all the same, and that's why our largest table in the house for the last 4 years has been a table of 6. We don't do 8s, we don't do 10s, we don't do tables of 7. 6 is the largest. I wonder why. Guinea fowl, one of my favourite birds, and this always reminds me of Paris, because this is where I first learned the method of poaching and grilling. And we used to have a pigeon from Brest, poché grillé, and I could never understand why this pigeon was poached until I asked the man himself, Guy Savoy. He explained the fact that they poached the bird prior to grilling in order to render down the excess fat contained within that particular bird, and the combination of having the skin poached beforehand and then grilled on an open grill was brilliant. The flavour was excellent. I've transformed that dish and now features quite regularly on my menu with guinea fowl. I don't actually use the legs for this particular dish, so we're just going to very carefully remove these. Now, these should not go to waste, because these can be served with a salad, roasted. Here, of course, we call them a staff treat, because what actually happens, we roast the legs and we serve them inside some delicious club sandwiches. I've never had a 2 Michelin star club sandwich, but I can assure you our staff throughout lunch and dinner do extremely well from these, because they're roasted in the oven with some herbs, left to cool down, and of course all the meat picked off the bone the following day and put inside a delicious sandwich for lunch. So legs off, like so. Guinea fowl are a very thin, structured bird. It's not as plump as the chicken. So, in order to poach it properly, we're just going to remove half the carcass, like so. Put that in there. Into the stock for 3 minutes. Straight out of the stock. Just lightly drain it and then into your tray. Leave it to cool down for about 3 minutes and then I'm going to remove it, take it off the bone. It's important to do this whilst it's hot. If you leave it to cool down completely, then the chances of actually tearing and ripping the flesh is quite high. So it's warm and it's a lot easier to cut and we won't rip or shred the guinea fowl. So hand firmly on, feel where the breastbone is there. That's the top of the bone there. So we're just going to slice on there throughout the whole back, round the wishbone, and then finally through. Thumb and finger underneath the fillet and just hold that back and come off as close to the bone as you can, like so. As you can see, it's still quite warm inside, and we're just almost like peeling the guinea fowl breast off. Once you've sliced it down round the carcass, you can identify it's still quite raw inside. It hasn't lost its texture. It's still incredibly succulent and not so firm, which is the most important part. I don't want the presentation bone off there, so I'm just going to come round there and slice off my supreme. We're going to very lightly season. Again, both sides, because what we fail to realise while we're cooking, we always lose 90% of the seasoning throughout the cooking process, and we've got a double cooking process here where we're going to be poaching first and obviously grilling, so it's important to have a very thorough seasoning both sides so it's almost in and stays in. Right, very carefully just drizzle with olive oil on top of the skin like that. Coat it throughout, because what we don't want this to do is we don't want it to burn. We want a nice crispy skin, but we don't want it to burn. So that's why we're coating with our olive oil, like now. And now we're going to place onto the center of the grill. Just a small touch of olive oil again in there, not too much. Skin side down. Onto the grill. If we had to put this on from raw, then it will shrivel. It would go down by half its size and would lose a huge amount of the breast. So the important part, of course, is to poach it, and that's one of the reasons why we poach, we render, and of course this helps to maintain the shape of the guinea fowl breast. So just very carefully turned over, like so. Both sides, you can see it's now starting to mark beautifully. It's becoming nice and crisp. And we're just going to very lightly glaze with the olive oil again. Just turn them down that side now, just so we can have an alternate marking, so it actually looks like a proper crisscross. Sometimes when it's becoming a little slow in the process of cooking, with a fillet here, just flip the fillet over and then turn the whole thing back over again, just so it cooks properly inside. I've taken these off slightly early. They're about 95% cooked because it's incredibly hot on here and the temperature of the guinea fowl inside is very, very, very hot. So the interesting thing now is that will continue to cook. By the time I come to serve it, it will be nice and tender. It would relax. I wouldn't serve them straight away like that because it's too tense. We need time for the meat to relax, the skin to stay nice and crispy, and all the flavours now to start transpiring throughout the guinea fowl. And whilst we're cooking the garnish, in about 3 or 4 minutes' time, they'll be ready for serving. To garnish the guinea fowl, I've got some asparagus. The nice thing about the asparagus is they're actually going to be cooked in butter and then actually deglazed with a little of the guinea fowl stock, like so. So it's almost like very fine braised asparagus tips. Next to that, we're going to have some nice Savoy cabbage. Savoy cabbage that have been peeled, the stalks removed because we want it to cook quickly. We don't want any chewiness in the cabbage. That's going to be sautéed off, again in a touch of butter, like so, but very, very quickly so we maintain the colour. We don't have this insipid grey cabbage. Nicely seasoned. And then finally, because they've just come into season now, we've got some wonderful chanterelle mushrooms. And they are actually grown in a greenhouse. Commonly known in the trade as the only mushroom we don't need to wash because they're actually not grown inside soil. They're grown on top of polystyrene containers, so they come out incredibly clean. And the nice thing about it, we don't need to wash them. Because if we start to wash them, they absorb water like a sponge. We can never sauté them. And they're not very exciting to eat. So the cabbage is just cooked very, very quickly in hot butter. And then again, just 2 or 3 tables of our stock just to moisten it inside. A touch more in there, be a bit more generous with the cabbage. If you've got any smoked bacon trimmings at home, then put some, bacon trimmings in with the cabbage, the asparagus, the chanterelles, and finally the sauce. The most interesting thing about the sauce, we're actually using the cooking liquor from the guinea fowl. We're going to whisk in a teaspoon of foie gras trimmings that we've had in the fridge for about 3 to 4 days, and they're just little trimmings of foie gras into the stock. Like so. We're going to bring that back up to the boil. We're going to leave the foie gras to almost render down inside the stock. Then we're going to buzz it very quickly, pass it through a chinois, and just glaze our guinea fowl with it. Right, sautéing chanterelle very, very quickly. Butter in last. Chanterelles in first and then the butter, not the other way around. If we put the butter in that pan now, it's going to burn. It'll have a very gritty beurre noisette flavour on the chanterelle. We're going to put the mushrooms into the pan, like so. Wait for it. You can actually hear the water coming out there now. Wait 3 or 4 seconds. And then add your butter. This stops the mushrooms from poaching. They actually sauté, they have flavour, and it's a really nice way of cooking a mushroom incredibly quickly. So, lightly seasoned, round, very, very quickly. And finally, to finish off the sauce, we've got the foie gras, the stock. Just put a little touch of cream in there, just to give a nice velvet texture to the sauce. We're going to just buzz it very, very quickly on a bar stick mix. And with the richness of the cabbage, the asparagus, the mushrooms, we want something very light in flavour. It's nice. It has a very nice, rich flavour to it. I'm going to put a bit more foie gras in there because we don't want that to go to waste. And then finally, just break down the strands of the foie gras into the boiling sauce. Correct the seasoning. And then, before serving, we're just going to very quickly pass the sauce through a very fine chinois, like so, because the texture of this dish is incredibly simple. The sauce is very, very light. We don't want it to be rich and heavy and stodgy. Okay, for serving, we're just going to place our cabbage in the bottom of the copper pan, because the nice thing about this can be done up 3 or 4 minutes before you need it. Left on the side to keep nice and hot. It's great to flash through the oven to keep warm. Cabbage in the centre. And then around the bottom, got these wonderful, beautiful, glazed and sort of half braised, half sautéed, but not overcooked. You can see it's still nice and firm. We've peeled them down to an extent that we've got rid of that horrible, rooty, stringy effect on the bottom of the asparagus. So place the asparagus at the bottom, around with the cabbage. We're going to just very quickly just carve our guinea fowl breast, because there's nothing attractive in just looking at one large breast. So we're going to cut it into nice portions. As you can see, it's still nice and moist. Just always slice at an angle. We're slicing at an angle like this. We're coming towards my fingers because of the roundness of the breast. So we're starting from the top and going to the end this way. If I went the other side round, I'd rip and tear the flesh of the guinea fowl. It's not very attractive for presentation. Equally, we know the flavour holds the memory, but of course, if we can make it look attractive along the way, then even better. So very, very careful under that nice, crispy skin. And that's what we've been looking for. Now, had we not poached this dish to begin with, we'd never have that crispy texture feeling on top of the guinea fowl. So very, very carefully into the serving dish. Like so, keeping hold of all that skin around, sat on top of that wonderful, lightly braised cabbage, finished with chanterelle. Bring the sauce up to the boil, and then finally, just give it a little buzz. Correct the seasoning before we finish. It's very light. Sometimes you can season it with thyme flowers, but it doesn't need that here today because we've got the cabbage, the asparagus, the chanterelle, and it's ready to serve. So just very generously glaze the guinea fowl with the sauce. I'm a great lover of sauce, so I can always take litres and litres of this because it's so light, it's interesting, it's an intriguing sauce, and so delicious. And then we have guinea fowl, poached and grilled, served on a bed of braised cabbage, garnished with asparagus and a very light foie gras sauce.